grassroots and nonprofit organizations in community development, community health, and community well-being. We spoke to Christy from South Carolina DHEC, and we were talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it really took grassroots organizations and nonprofit community-based organizations to be able to penetrate those hard to reach communities. And most times those hard to reach communities are communities that often were experiencing health disparities prior to COVID-19. So our community-based organizations play such a huge role, but oftentimes these organizations have limited resources. So Amber, I'll start with you. Through your work with SCACED, can you speak to some of the programs you deliver that are designed to support these grassroots organizations and nonprofit community-based organizations?
Yes, I would be more than happy to. And thank you, Melanie and Amy and everyone at ULI and who's on this call today to let me speak and talk about the work we do here at SCACED and just more how we can work together to create healthy communities throughout all the states. So we are a statewide member organization, and we support the development of healthy and economically sustainable communities throughout the entire state. And as mentioned by Melanie, we focus a lot on building the capacity of our members, and we do that in a lot of ways. And so I'm going to touch upon just a few of our programs that I definitely highly encourage you to visit our website at scaced.org, sign up for our weekly newsletter to check out all the work that we're doing. But probably the most main three capacity components that we try and do at our organization focus on training, funding, as well as certification. So when it comes to our training, we have the Community Development Institute, also known as CDI. That's the training piece we have. We provide trainings throughout the year at a free or reduced cost to our members and network. And all the topics range from community economic development to profit management. And currently, our main training series right now is our Advocacy Bootcamp webinar series. Tomorrow is our third one, and it's going to be on data. So that's been a really engaging series we've had this year. We also have a cohort who is working towards getting their housing development financial professional certification through NDC, also known as National Development Council, which I bet there's several people on this call who are very familiar with NDC. And so this is a great opportunity. We're really happy to have Truist Bank sponsor this. And so our members are actually able to attend this training at almost like a tenth of the cost of what it normally does. So this really helps them get the knowledge and experience they need at a very reduced cost. We also provide, our members get full scholarships to NeighborWorks Training Institute, which is offered several times a year. And so this really helps them to learn best practices in all areas of community economic development. And then we also provide technical assistance to our members. They get 4 free hours a year. And this all depends on what are those specific organizational needs. May it be for board development or grant writing assistance. It's just whatever they reach out to us, we work on what we can provide for them and trying to execute that to the best of our ability. So moving on to like our funding, we do a little bit of funding through 2 different types of grants. The first one is our Community Impact Fund, or CIF. And so our CIF grant program is our small dollar grant that is exclusive to our members, and they're able to apply up to $15,000 to support the organization's programs, their community development projects, or their internal operations as well to help build that capacity. Last year, because of the pandemic, fortunately, we were able to receive additional funding to re-grant out. So we were able to distribute $240,000 to 35 organizations. And this went to direct internal operational support to keep the lights on, to pay their staff, to give out PPE supplies, or other emergency services, maybe utility, rental assistance, food, whatever it may be. And then we also give out community garden and hoop house grants each year in rural and urban areas that are in food deserts. And so those are our two big funding pieces. And then the last thing I'll touch upon is certification. So we certify community development corporations, also known as CDCs, and community development financial institutions. Also, those are CDFIs. Tammie with CommunityWorks is a CDFI. They are certified CDFI. This is a state certification. The program is actually out of the South Carolina Department of Commerce. And we manage that program on the behalf of them. They give final approval for all certification. But what certification does, it's kind of a rigorous process. It's a long application, and they have to show complete an organizational assessment that just shows that they are at a higher capacity when it comes to community development organization, that they have a track record of running successful programs and work. And with that certification, it lasts for 2 years, and then they can reapply for recertification. And they get two benefits by being a state certified organization. One is the community development tax credit, which is a great incentive for certified orgs to attract private donors and investors to make a contribution to their organization. They get a 50% state tax credit for any cash donation, and a 33% tax credit for any equity investment into an organization. The last time we had tax credits was back in 2019 when the state legislature allocated an additional $1 million. Those tax credits in the first round of availability were reserved within 4 minutes. And then in the second round, they were reserved within 24 hours. So we haven't had tax credits since 2019, but we currently have a bill, S436, a Senate bill, requesting additional allocation of community development tax credits. And it's asking for $2 million in this year in 2021, and then $3 million through 2023. So we are doing a lot of policy and advocacy work to push that to get through, trying to get as many Senate co-sponsors and trying to get them to assign it to the subcommittee within the Senate Finance Committee. So that's one benefit of the certification. I'm almost done, I promise. And
you're fine, Amber.
The other big benefit of being a certified org is the CED fund, Community Economic Development Fund. That is also dependent on what the state will do. It originally, when this was passed, they allocated $5 million to, and it's a grant dollar fund, but they've only actually have approved 3 million in their budget throughout the years. And so there's still technically $2 million left. And we have also gone back almost annually requesting that they put that in their budgets so that that money can be re-granted to state certified organizations. So we currently have 22 state certified organizations. You can view all of them on our website, and they do a lot of great work. And CommunityWorks is a great example of that. And so that's just a little bit of the work we do. There's probably 10 or other 15 areas we're working in, but I'll pause there and let you continue on.
Well, Amber, that's excellent because as we stated, those are the organizations that are holding our communities together. And so to hear that level of support from you all is just excellent. So I do have a question, Tammie. You know, you as the CEO of CommunityWorks, you're always thinking holistically of the ecosystem that it takes to create and sustain economically viable communities. Can you speak to the major components that creates that ecosystem and the importance of each?
Sure, and thank you. And I think Amber's sort of description of SCACED and the work that they're doing really ties into this because, you know, it's sort of a three-legged stool when we think about community economic development. You know, you've got your for-profit folks, and I'm sure there's several folks on the line here that are for-profit developers or, for-profit businesses. You've got your government entities, which, allow different resources, allow different permissions for different types of economic development. And then the non-for-profit sector, which is a sector that Amber was just referring to, as well as CommunityWorks as a non-for-profit lender. So that is sort of a holistic, component of really making communities work, making them thrive. I always say that, nonprofit is a tax status. It's not for profit. It's just that we,
Right.
all the proceeds and everything that we do goes right back into our mission to focus on, a part of the marketplace that's currently not being filled. And as Amber mentioned, CommunityWorks is a certified community development lender. So we actually are certified by the U.S. Treasury Department to be a loan fund. And so we finance, as you know, Melanie, affordable housing, we finance small businesses, we finance community facilities. And in many cases, we're very focused on equitable access to financing and investing. And we wrap all that around with financial wellness. So when you talk about holistic approaches to things, whether you're talking about an entrepreneur who needs startup capital, but they also need technical assistance. They also need access to education. They also need access to other meaningful resources through mentorships and things like that. And so one of our focuses is not only helping folks get access to financing for their projects or for their businesses, but making sure they have the financial resources and education around those particular projects. And in particular, we focus on people in communities of color, those individuals that maybe have been underrepresented in the traditional banking community. And so, or they don't feel comfortable, they haven't built a relationship. Friends and families are different in their community when they look at starting a business or they look at access to credit or capital. And so, our focus is really about how do we get equitable resources to communities that have been underrepresented. And I think that just, again, that three-legged stool, the private market is providing those resources in some cases. The government organizations are providing those resources in some cases, like Amber was talking about, either through policy or tax credits or different incentives. And then organizations like us kind of come and fill the gaps. And so we think about economic opportunity and economic mobility for all, which is, I know, a lot about what this series is about. People are starting from different points. And so, how do we create access to those resources for everyone? And when you think about a thriving community, we think about, living wage, access to good employment, affordable housing. I always say, jobs go home somewhere to spend the night. And so how far are people driving? What kind of conditions are they living in? When they come to work every day, how do they show up to work every day? What sort of things, like, I know you're very focused on health and healthcare, so when people go home, like, what are their situations, so that there is access to, transportation, healthy food. We know many of our communities are food deserts. So a lot of the work that we do at CommunityWorks is looking at a community from a holistic perspective. It's great if we have affordable housing, but if folks don't have transportation to job centers, then you just have affordable housing, in the distant area versus connected to other resources. Obviously, we know education is critical. Access to quality education in particular is very difficult, especially in some of our rural communities right now with access to broadband, access to internet, since we're virtual. So some of those challenges that we faced previously are now kind of bubbling more to the surface of what we think we have access to. And then, of course, we know that childcare is super essential to communities as well. We know that we know that that's, something right now we're seeing, of course, with the pandemic. We have a lot of, especially our women businesses who have a side hustle. We call it a side hustle while they also have a full-time job. And a lot of those individuals either lost their job or actually are going to make their side hustle their full-time job because childcare has been challenging and some of those other things. So again, I kind of go back to that public-private, non-for-profit relationship and how do we look at community economic development? How do we work together in a holistic way and making sure that we have those assets in all the communities as it relates to economic viability and creating a thriving community. So it's not just one thing, right? Like you said, it's an ecosystem, and each one of us play a role in that ecosystem in creating the access that may not have been there.
Absolutely, Tammie. That's actually a perfect segue into the next question as we focus in on housing affordability. So we know that to meet the market demands for more affordable housing, we must be creative in our approaches to financing, creative in our approaches to non-traditional partnerships, and innovation in the built environment. So this is a question for both of you, actually. Can you provide an example of a South Carolina-based project that has successfully used creative and innovative approaches to financing, non-traditional partnerships, and in the built environment?
Absolutely. So Amber, you want to jump in first and then I'll.
Sure, that's no problem at all. Thank you, Tammie. Yeah, there's, when you told us this question in advance, it was kind of hard to pick one because there are a lot of, that just shows how many.
Which is great.
Yeah, there's a lot of good work happening in the state and there's always more potential for more opportunities. But I'll probably stick to a personal bias favorite of mine, and that's the organization Metanoia. SCACED, we are statewide, but we are based in Charleston, so it's kind of easy to be connected to Charleston organizations. And Metanoia is in North Charleston. Okay. They specifically serve the Chicora Cherokee neighborhood. And not only about 15 years ago, they successfully advocated towards the school board to build a new elementary school in their neighborhood instead of just closing the old elementary school and busing out the children. Just like Tammie mentioned, you need a holistic, healthy ecosystem, and they knew in their community they needed that elementary school to be an anchor of their community, because if you don't have a school, where's their incentive for people to move into a community? And so that was a huge campaign of theirs. But after the city, the school board successfully built a new school for them, there was the old Chicora Elementary School still there. And so years since then, they are now starting to break ground to redevelop that entire school building. It's going to be an excellent mixed use building. It's going to have a performing arts center, art studio space. It's going to have an early learning childcare center where it will allow children of all incomes to go to on a sliding scale, which is huge. Again, Tammie mentioned Women's with Business Center having access to affordable, safe childcare. This will be a great opportunity for that neighborhood. And also having that affordable art space and studio space for artists and residences to go to. And they've been really unique in their partnerships. Metanoia is a state certified org. They have taken advantage of the tax credits, state community development tax credits in the past to raise additional private capital. They work very closely with the city of North Charleston. Just this week in the news, I read that the city council approved to sell the school to Metanoia, so they will be buying that very shortly. They also are using other tax credits, state and national federal tax credits to fund this program, and they have private dollars invested in it as well. And just to reiterate all the great things Tammie covered, that just shows that those three pillars that she mentioned of the private sector, the government sector, and the nonprofit sector working together successfully to complete a project. Yeah, so it's a really successful, great opportunity. I can't wait for that to be finished for them.
Absolutely. Sounds like it, Amber. Thank you. Tammie, yeah, I know you have some examples on examples.
Yeah, and I mean, the Amber picked a great one, and many folks on the call today may be familiar with purpose-built communities, which is sort of a national model, founded out of East Lake in Atlanta. So those of you that have been to Atlanta or visited that, and many of folks in the state here in South Carolina know about Spartanburg and the North Side redevelopment effort across from Wofford College, which was an old textile mill neighborhood. And we know how textile mills kind of went in disrepair as those particular jobs went away and neighborhoods became vacant and abandoned, unfortunately. But for a specific project, I think that Amber did a great job talking about a holistic community redevelopment. And so I won't belabor that with Northside, but one particular affordable housing development. And one of the things I think that is so important is that I'm seeing is that more private developers are becoming interested in affordable housing. And I think that's really, and I think that's kudos to ULI. It's kudos to your leadership to really talk about how do we create mixed income, vibrant communities. It's the way neighborhoods were built a long time ago. I grew up in steel mill industry up there in the Midwest, where you are now. And,
Yeah.
you had different types of housing for different levels of workers. And that's really what we're trying to get back to, but in a more equitable way, right? So, righting the wrongs of our past when we think about planning and redevelopment. But so the North Side project, the North Side Apartments, which is actually, it should be complete in June or July. Was a mixed income. It's 90 units of not only affordable, but market rate apartments, utilizing the state tax credit as well as the national federal. So many developers probably utilize the 4% tax credit bond financing or the 9% federal low income housing tax credit as a tool to create affordable housing. And sometimes those can be barriers as well, especially when you're trying to do mixed income in one building. And so one of our ultimate goals in the North Side is that no matter what street you walk down, you didn't know which development was affordable and which development was market rate, right? And really creating inclusivity in the community. So it was very important to us that that particular development had market, affordable, and workforce housing within one building. Which meant the financing sources didn't come very easy. Right. So the housing authority, Spartanburg Housing Authority, participated and provided financing. We used a textile mill credit. So the site in which the building is being built on was the old parking lot of the Spartan Mill. And so we were able to get the extension of the textile credit, which was beneficial. We even had the Department of Mental Health provide financing to the project because we were going to be having mixed income integrated housing for folks facing mental health. We also had private investment. So the Northside Development Group raised money to put into the project. Federal Home Loan Bank. So lots of, I call it like the 11 layers of financing. It's like it's like lasagna to make projects like this work. But to Amber's point, it took the public, the private, the city provided the land at a discount to the project. The city provided home funding and some other resources. So I think the incentives for more private developers to get involved in creating these mixed income communities, I think is really essential. And that's just one specific project. I will say, it took multi-years to get to the finish line. And again, it should be completed in June this year. Our partners, Creative Builders and NHE, who are South Carolina-based partners, were also adamant about the vision of what we were trying to create. And the most important part of this project, Melanie, was the neighborhood engagement. And so we can't say enough about community engagement and making sure that the residents are participating in the planning process all along the way, because I think it was really essential that they understood and were a part of the decision-making process of this project. And so that was why, again, a very holistic approach to this particular project.
Absolutely. Tammie, you touched on it a bit. And so I want to wrap it up with this question, actually, and then leave about 10 minutes or so open for Q&A. So we are at 9 o'clock now. Our session will end at 9:15. So I do want to ask this question about how do we incentivize more private developers to join affordable housing and creative mixed use, mixed income community development efforts? Are there some programs, ways to incentivize private developers that you all are aware of?
I'll jump in, I guess, Amber, then you can follow. So I think there's two ways to support affordable housing in my mind. There's permission, right? Which is local governments can provide permission and incentivize developers, whether that be through density bonuses, sort of voluntary inclusionary zoning where developers get some sort of local benefit from the municipality or the county. Sometimes there's tax abatement. So there's the project that I just mentioned to you, the county actually provided some tax relief to the project. So there are some ways that local government can provide permissions. In addition, there's innovative financing tools. And for example, I think, I'm based here in Greenville. Melanie, you're here in Greenville. The city launched a housing fund, and actually CommunityWorks was founded as a housing fund originally to finance affordable housing. And so you're seeing more movement around local housing trust funds. We have a state housing trust fund that provides financing to projects, but you're seeing more momentum. Spartanburg just partnered with us to launch a housing fund. I know Charleston and Amber may speak to this. We're working on a local housing fund, the Midlands. So there are some local financing tools that local governments and counties are looking at to sort of incentivize and provide new financing tools in addition to the permission to do these types of projects and providing those incentives. But Amber, you I'm sure have some things to add as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the community development tax credit, if you want to call up your state senator and ask them to support S436, it's a great private-public partnership, and we keep reiterating that it takes all different networks to make this happen, and $1 million in tax credits in 2019 leveraged to 2.6 million in private investment. And so it just shows that nonprofits are very creative in stretching that dollar and maximizing it in any way possible. And so that's a really great local state incentive, as well as with those other tax credits. The state successfully last year or 2 years ago passed their own LIHTC state tax credit, which matches the federal LIHTC. And so that is a really great also opportunity for for-profit developers to partner with nonprofit developers to provide these affordable housing and mixed use development throughout all the state. And I would just encourage individuals who aren't already working with nonprofits is reach out to them, get to know them, and start off with just listening to what they do, listening to what the community needs are, because I think it's great that we all want to have like a helping hand and we want to dive in and be like, what can I do? I want to do as much as I can, but we got to remember to just first stop, listen, see what the community needs are, and see if you can support along the way, because sometimes we think we have even with our best intentions, may not be what the community needs at this time. And I think that's what true holistic asset-based community development is just walking along with the community and helping them provide the resources that they need. And so I encourage, check out the certified organization list on our website. That's a great way to start to see where these developers are already in our state, where you can reach out to them, reach out to your local city government. They know who the organizations are in their area, and they know where some of the needs are too. And you can start a new opportunity and get creative with all those incentives when it comes to financing. And so that's where I'll just stop there. And I'm more than happy to talk to anyone offline at any time.
Excellent. So now I would like for if everyone could turn on your cameras and we can open it up for some Q&A. I will look to see if there's questions here in the chat, but feel free to start engaging with our panelists this morning. Let's see. So
hello.
Hi,
Good morning. This is Ted. My video wouldn't let me on. But first of all, I would like to congratulate you, Melanie, Amber, and Tammie. You did an excellent job. And this is just a segue from last week's conversation into this week's conversation. So it tells me that we are on the right path. Amber, you forgot us, Jasper County Neighbors United. You were not there in 2009 when we purchased a 42-unit apartment complex, now we call Mercy Circle. It was a drug-infested development in the heart of the city of Hardeeville. And we went to our city government, we went to our county government, we went to South Carolina Association of CDCs, it was called back then. We received $140 from your agency through the Department of Commerce to make this deal happen. So it was a real partnership where the county, the city, a nonprofit, and the state got involved to make an affordable housing project happen. It was drug infested, like I said. It was on the market, and these were low-income citizens. Although they had problems, it was going to be sold. And one thing that Tammie said, transportation. You remember I talked about that last week, Melanie, how
Yes.
important transportation is and an affordable housing community. Tammie, you hit that dead center. So I want to congratulate you on that. So Melanie, Amber on that, thank you. But I just wanted to let you know that you made my first project happen in the city of Hardyville.
Yeah,
so your agency. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ted.
And Tammie, I could swear you were over my head last night while I was dreaming.
I might have been.
Yeah.
I might have been.
You talked about everything,
Well, Ted,
about
thanks.
all the impediments that are created to stop affordable housing. I wouldn't say stop it, but just impediments that wouldn't allow us to go any further.
Yeah.
With me being a minority nonprofit developers, I've been working on a project for the last, since 2000 and maybe 12, 14, to just get some apartments built. I can't get it. I've found some consultants. I've found engineer. I found everyone, the bankers. Everyone is on board. I cannot get my team to come together to do what needs to be done. I don't know if it's because I'm a minority and they don't think I have any money or what's the obstacles are. But I feel like I'm being very slighted because I've given all the information that is required. I've given everything. So tell me, what do you think? What can I do to let my consultants and my engineer and my bankers and everyone know that we are serious about what we are doing? We've been serious ever since 1999. And it just seems like we can't find any banking partners or consultants or engineers that would really work with us. We have to call them. They never contact us. We always have to contact them. They never says, well, we are working on your project. We'll give you an update, blah, blah, blah. Months go by, weeks goes by. If I don't call them, they don't call me. So what do you think that I'm doing wrong? If anything,
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing all the right things, bringing the right people to the table. Again, I think to Amber's point earlier, sometimes there's the political will to actually get things done. And I think the advocacy part is certainly essential. And, happy, Ted, as you know, we've talked offline a couple of times, but to continue having that conversation as well. But you're right. I mean, it's public-private relationships, and the political will is important. But it sounds like you've got a good development team now that can help you push it forward. I know there were some questions in the chat as well, Melanie, kind of about that, about like how do you get these to the finish line, and the community engagement I think is essential. But we can't state enough, Ted, to your point, the advocacy that's required for these projects at all levels, both at the resident community level, as well as our local elected officials. And certainly we want to be advocates. I know ULI is a big advocate for these types of projects as well. But Melanie,
and I own my property outright. I mean, it's not like I own the property. The nonprofit owns the property. So it's not like, we up against anyone. We just need someone to really come in and help us do this master plan so we can master plan a lot more projects before. I guess you all heard that the port, the state infrastructure bank turned over their 50% share that they own in the Jasper port to Jasper County. So now the port is now supposedly owned by the Port of Georgia and Jasper County. So that means we are 50% more headed toward in the direction of a port than not having a port. So why wait until the port get there if we know we're 50% there? Let's start building 50% of the houses and getting these people who's gonna build the port. Because the people who are gonna run the port, they're gonna come and live in mansions. They're not gonna live in the houses that we building, okay?
Well, Ted, it seems you have some great resources in both Amber and Tammie, and so we can definitely make sure that we're optimizing that connection to help move along the work that you're doing there in Jasper County.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And I do want to get to there's so Tammie, you did touch on the community part. There's another question that's very specific, Tammie, actually for you in the chat, where Tammie, what is the mixed income breakdown of the project you mentioned in Spartanburg? How many affordable units and at what level of affordability are those units, like percent AMI? And what was CommunityWorks' specific contribution to the lasagna that you mentioned, the 11 layers of financing?
Yeah, no, great question. And I don't have the exact unit breakdown, but it was 10% market rate, and then the other 80, so it was 90 total units. And 10% of that was market rate. And honestly, to do the 10% cost us more money because we did use a bond financing structure. But it was so important to us to follow the mission. And again, this is where you kind of die on your sword a little bit because you're like, it's so important that this project has that. And then it is a tiered system. So it's 80%, 60%, 50% AMI. So it's got all levels of AMI in there. And I think I also mentioned to you that there would also be some integration of from the Department of Mental Health as well. So it really is a true mixed income development, again, at sort of all levels. CommunityWorks came in as a last financer. We usually are the first money in or the last money in to make a project happen. So we provided a $750,000 gap loan to the project that helped to fill that last piece of that sort of, it was around $17 million project. And that last little $750,000 really made the project. So that meant that the Northside Development Group didn't have to raise additional money to fill that gap. We were able to come in and finance that particular part of the project.
Awesome. We have about 2 minutes left. So is there any additional burning questions or comments from those that are on the call today? If none, we do appreciate everyone joining us today. Amy, I'm not sure if there was anything else that you wanted to mention, anything coming up. We're good. Excellent. Well, thank you all for always being actively engaged. As we say, we have our last Coffee and Conversations coming up next week. And Amy, looks like you unmuted. So see if there's anything that you wanted to say before we jumped off.
Yeah, no, that was great, Melanie. Thank you so much. I was just going to remind, same time, same place next week, or not same place, different Zoom link, but you can find that on our website in the event descriptions there. But 8:30 to 9:15, our final in this series, conversation in this series. So I hope everyone will see you back next week. And just another really word of appreciation for Tammie and Amber and Melanie for the great conversation today, and also for serving on our advisory board. Ted Moyd as well is also a member of our advisory board. So thank you guys for the hard work, and we're just beginning these conversations, folks. So thanks everybody for your time and attention today, and look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Excellent. Everyone have a great morning.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Take care.